That was the most Philadelphia ending of all time. Philly season ends on an Orion Kerkering error. It is the first walk-off series-ending error in Major League Baseball history, and of course it happens to the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't even know where to begin with this team, honestly. What a terrible night for Philadelphia sports. I mean, every team lost. The Eagles are losing to, they're going to lose to the Giants of all teams. And then on top of it, you know, you had a game with the Phillies and Dodgers where you had your opportunities, and again, you ended up getting in your own way, I felt like a lot of times. This series was, everybody's to blame except basically the starting pitchers. You once again got an unbelievable performance for Christopher Sanchez. Then you go to Jesus Luzardo, who pitches a gem. And then obviously you have to go to Orion Kerkering. So I guess we'll kind of work backwards, but I'm kind of going to be free flowing here. One of the things that I liked when it came to the Phillies' chances in this game, in Game 4, was the fact that your big bats finally got going in Game 3. Finally. We finally saw it, thank God, right? And not only did they get going, but I said in the post-game video that I made that they got going, but they had multiple hits. It wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a 1-for-4 performance. You had Kyle Schwarber going deep twice. You had Bryce Harper doing things. You had Trey Turner, you know, getting on base, stealing bags, and scoring runs. It looked like finally we got the offense that we all thought we were going to get. And then what did they do? They reverted back. They reverted back to games 1 and 2. They were swinging at crap. They could not pick up Tyler Glasnow's curveball to save their lives. They were putting together horrendously bad at-bats. They had a bad approach. This was a team that outside of Game 3, their top 3 guys went 4 for 35 in this series. 4 for 35. Now, I know that they're playing incredible starting pitching. Okay, the Dodgers won 100 games last year. They won the World Series for a reason. They were a very deceiving number 3 seed. But to have your top stars go 4 for 35 in a 3 out of 4 game stretch is just inexcusable. Whereas the Dodgers, yeah, the Phillies pitching did really well against Ohtani. And they did fairly well against Betts and Freeman and, you know, other than the Teoscar Hernandez home run. Like, they did their job primarily. But it was the back end of that lineup that continued to grind out at bats and make life difficult and make the Phillies pay. Of course, Kike Hernandez ends the series. You know, why wouldn't he end the series? That's so, all right. It wasn't the pitcher's fault. The bats didn't come through. Let's just start out with, you know, I made a video after Game 2 saying I'm done with Rob Thompson. Nothing has changed. Obviously, nothing has changed. They just lost, but it wasn't like I would go, okay, you know, he pitched a little bit. No, he didn't manage better. In fact, when you look at this particular game, there was a series, in an entire series, but there was a series of bad decisions in an actual series that ended up, I think, costing the Phillies a chance at least to get this to a Game 5 or maybe even close it out. And it just, you know, I said this during the PHLY Phillies postgame, but when you think back to 2008, every single move that Charlie Manuel made, it seemed to work out. You know, he pinch hits Matt Stairs, he rips one into the night. And you can't really think back to that 08 run. And granted, it's been a while, but you don't really think back to that 08 run and go like, man, like he kind of fumbled this, he messed up that. On the flip side, it just seemed like every move Rob Thompson made was the wrong decision. I mean, the one move that I can point to and go like, I didn't like it at the time, but it ended up working out, was pitching Aaron Nola in Game 3, piggybacking with Ranger Suarez. Again, the starting pitching ended up coming through for this team. But the decision to consistently go lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty in the lineup and put Brandon Marsh as your 5-hole hitter, a guy that is routinely hitting 8th or 9th in your lineup, he's your 5-hole hitter. Dumb. Pathetic. Then there's the decision to bring in Jhoan Duran, your closer, in the 7th inning. But not only do you bring in your closer in the 7th inning, because if you want to make the argument of like, look, that's your biggest out, get it, and then worry about the next inning, fine, I get that. You're bringing him in with inherited runners. something he is not accustomed to. And that is my biggest problem with Rob Thomson. He took everything he did in this season that got them to this point and he flipped it. He did the opposite. It was like, okay, Matt Strahm, you're not used to coming in with runners in scoring position. Guess what? Now you are, and it ended up costing them. Jhoan Duran, you're not used to coming in with runners in scoring position. Guess what? Now you are. Oh, and by the way, we're going to walk Ohtani. We're going to walk the guy that we have owned this entire series. The guy that has looked lost this entire series. We're going to walk him to get to Mookie Betts. Because after all, it's righty-righty. Oh, by the way, go look at the splits of Mookie Betts, lefties versus righties. It's like 290 versus 280. You were screwed either way. Mookie Betts is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer, and you decided to walk Shohei Ohtani, who granted, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's struggling way worse than Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts was putting together quality at bats. Ohtani looked lost. And not only that, but you put yourself in a position by walking Ohtani where you had little to no wiggle room and ended up costing them. Where Duran could not locate his slider at all. He ends up walking Mookie Betts to tie the game, and then it became just a matter of what pitching performance was going to crack next. And then there was the decision to bring Luzardo. I liked it, all right? Luzardo, gamer. It was going to be his bullpen day anyway, so you bring him in. He gets the job done. But then you end up going to Orion Kerkering. And if you watched any of my videos, one of the problems that I had was that I think in game 1, they went to Orion Kerkering. And Orion Kerkering has been absolutely dog shit when you bring him in and he has to inherit runners. He is one of the worst pitchers, worst relief pitchers in all of baseball when he's forced to do that. You bring him in that spot. I really never thought that Orion Kerkering was built for the big moment. I think if he's got a 3-run lead, he's fine, but in this particular case, I always kind of felt like he came up short in the big leverage moments. Later on in the season, I felt like he was okay, but again, when he comes in with runners in scoring position, or he comes in with inherited runners at all, he shits himself, and that's exactly how this season ends. With Orion Kerkering actually making the right pitch, a great pitch, broken bat, and he gets the ball and he fumbles it and he panics. And you've got JT Realmuto saying, throw to first base. He's not even prepared to catch it. And Orion Kerkering ends up throwing it 50 feet above JT Realmuto, and the series ends. It was a poor decision by Rob Thomson to bring in Orion Kerkering in a series of poor decisions. The decision to bring in Jhoan Duran or to inherit runners, you have an actual bullpen. You have guys that all season long have gotten people out. And yet, you go to Jhoan Duran because he's, look, probably your best pitcher out of the pen, but in that particular case, is he your best pitcher out of the pen? When he's not used to coming in, not only not in the 7th, he's not used to coming in with inherited runners. It seemed like this entire series, Rob Thomson was panicking. He was managing for his job because he knew it, and he was making the wrong decision upon wrong decision upon wrong decision, and that's the reason they're going home, and that's the reason that he will be finding a new job. Because at this point, you can't convince me that Rob Thomson and Kevin Long deserve to be back. I've never been a hater of these guys. I've never made one video where I've said, oh my God, and I've over-panicked, but at this point, this is the 3rd straight postseason series where the offense has looked lost and lifeless for the majority of it, and their approach has been terrible. Bryce Harper was dreadful. He was horrible. Kyle Schwarber, horrible. Trey Turner, not very good. Again, the only thing you can say that was good about this was the pitching. And it wasn't like I thought that the Phillies were marketably better than the Dodgers. I thought going into the series it was going to be tough. I made a whole video about it, that this was going to be a dogfight. And even though the games score-wise were close, they never felt like they were all that close. And this could have went very differently, I think, with just a manager who had a legitimate feel for the postseason. But I think Rob Thomson is living off of that 2022 run that they got to the World Series because they didn't know any better, but now there's pressure, and he's shit himself. Because it just seemed like every single decision he made was the wrong decision. Again, Brandon Marsh was hitting 5th for this team. This team panicked when they lost, check notes, Harrison Bader. All of a sudden, Harrison Bader became Shane Victorino for this team. He became the greatest outfielder of all time. Let's talk about the roster construction for the NLDS, the decision to put on all of these pitchers that they didn't even use. Now, the good news is, if you're a Phillies fan, Walker Buehler and Tim Meza will be available for Game 5. The bad news is there won't be a Game 5 because they shit themselves. But they're available, they're fresh, they never pitched great. The decision to not put on Johan Rojas, okay, if he's injured for whatever reason, if he's got something going on, fine. Then put on Justin Crawford. Have him make his debut. Now, people might comment in the comment section and go like, that's a panic move. You had Dave Dombrowski say during a media session at the end of the season during that inter-squad game, he addressed the media and he said, oh, we definitely thought about bringing him up. We think he's ready, but we didn't really need him in that moment. And then we went out and got Harrison Bader, and you don't need to rush Justin Crawford. You don't need to bring him up because we're good in that spot. Okay, fine. But the roster construction for the NLDS was fucked. It was completely fucked. Because if the Dodgers had one weakness, it was their bullpen. And if you got into an extra innings game situation, you should have been comfortable going from your bullpen versus their bullpen. And again, if Orion Kerkering is put in a better situation, and if Jhoan Duran is put in maybe a better situation, you don't have the manager saying, hey, walk Ohtani, I think they probably are in a better situation. I think the Phillies end up getting to Blake Tryon. I think they end up hitting Blake Tryon. I think this series is going back to Philadelphia for 5. But again, the managerial decisions ended up costing them. So you should have been comfortable going, okay, I understand we want all these pitchers because if we get into an extra inning situation, we don't want to be starting, we want to be throwing position players out there, God forbid. But against this team, we should be able to hit their bullpen if it were to get to that case. Let's put on an extra outfielder. Harrison Bader gets injured after game 1. He can't play game 2. He can pinch hit in game 3, pinch hit in game 4. But it doesn't even matter. The fact that they finally got it seemed like at least a good at bat, and it was from Harrison Bader, and it took 8 innings to get a good at bat, to get a guy grinding out at bat. Well, at that point, you're not really looking for a good at bat. You're looking for a base hit because at that point, you don't care about rising up a pitch count. Like, this team was lost throughout the majority of this entire series. And it just didn't seem like it was all that competitive. And I'll make a whole video on where we go from here. But at this point, to me, it's like, what team is more poorly coached? Is it the Phillies or is it the Eagles? Because they both look like shit right now. They both had high expectations. And for the Phillies, once again, to finish the season in disappointing fashion in the NLDS, with the lineup that they have, with the wins that they had, they have officially reached, for me, Sixers apathy, where the regular season doesn't matter. You're going to end up getting in because of the wild card and because your talent is too much. You're going to end up getting in no matter what. But at this point, it's like, wake me up when. If you were to tell me that the Phillies were going to lose this series and I was going to be livid on how they lost it, I would have figured, okay, well, at some point, one of these pitchers shit the bed. And at some point, I was going to be saying, damn, would have been nice to have Wheeler tonight. At no point did I say it. At no point did you say it. At no point did any of the fans say, man, I wish we had Zach Wheeler. And that is an indictment of this offense. They never seem to get a clutch hit outside of Nick Castellanos, of all people, who wasn't even projected to be in the starting lineup, but he had to because of the Harrison Bader injury. It is unbelievable how this team once again came up short. And I'm dead inside. I'm dead inside. If you're not a Phillies fan, I hope you're enjoying this because I'm fucking dead inside. So now's the part where I'm going to ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel. I really need subscribers. To take it full transparency, YouTube makes you have 1,000 to start getting paid. So please, you don't have to watch any more videos. Just subscribe. Let me know what your takeaways are in the comments section. Who's to blame for this? I know Orion Kerkering is going to get a lot of the blame. Rob Thompson, I think, should get a lot of the blame. I'm not even going to take the human angle of like, well, Orion Kerkering probably feels bad. No, fuck that, dude. That's a little league play. You should feel bad. That is a little league play to throw to first base. Your catcher is pointing to first base. You would have had the play at first base. And instead you go, no. Done. Done with him, done with his stupid name, done with his crying dad, done with it all. That's an emotional reaction from me. You can hit thumbs down for that. But very disappointing end to the season, no doubt about it. I could have accepted it if they were a little bit competitive, a little more competitive with their offense. They weren't. And once again, we're talking about the Phillies going home. Back to the drawing board. And this team is going to be marketably different than next season than this season. And once again, I'll make a whole video about that. So thanks for watching. Again, subscribe, like, dislike, comment, all that.